Today we're going to make scrunchies. We're going to sew them on a machine, and you just need the very basic knowledge of sewing on a machine to do this project. It's pretty simple. You'll need a small piece of fabric that's about 18 inches long by 4 inches wide. If you're going to add a tie in the same or another color, it could be 9 inches by 4 inches. You'll need a piece of elastic that's 6.5 inches long, a large safety pin, and your thread and scissors. This is a great way to use up a lot of different fabric. Little scraps you have from leftover projects really uses a small amount. And you don't have to add the tie, but you can. It's a little fun and cute, and you can mix and match different colors. Today I'm going to make one that is black, white, and green with a little paw prints for my school colors. Go Palmer Panthers! Let's get started. First, I'm going to take my longer strip for my scrunchie, and I'm going to hem just one of the edges on the short side. I'm not even going to pin it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a really small 4-inch piece. I'm just going to hold that under. Don't forget to always backstitch and begin. Next, I'm going to fold right sides together in half. And I'm going to stitch down this long side, starting where I hemmed. Again, don't forget to backstitch in the beginning and the end. Okay, now that it's sewn together, I want to turn it the right side out. So I'm going to flip it around. Now, to do that, you can feed it through, flip it around, and push it through with your fingers, but I like to get myself a really long stick. I actually use a long paintbrush on the back. And once I started it, then I'm just going to keep pushing it through with the end and pulling it down to flip it right side out. It's a handy little trick. It makes it go a lot quicker. And if you don't have a long paintbrush, you can always just use a pencil as well. Now, once I've had it all flipped around, just check the ends. Then what I'm going to do is put the elastic on the inside. So to get this piece of elastic through, we're going to put the safety pin through one end of the elastic and close it up. Now I'm using the safety pin so I can thread it through this long tube that I have. Now the trick is not to lose the end, the opposite end. So I'm going to take that opposite end and I'm going to sandwich it in between my fingers so that I don't lose it. And then I'm just going to push the safety pin through. I'm just going to guide it through because I can feel the end and push it all the way through this long tube of fabric that I made. And I'm just scrunching it up till I get all the way to the end. Then what I'm going to do is pull out the safety pin, keeping the other end. I'm going to hold both ends. I'm going to pinch them tight so I don't lose them inside the scrunchie. I'm going to take out my safety pin, and then what we're going to do is sew those together. So just try to line them up as close as you can. And what we're going to do when we sew them is we're going to just stitch back and forth several times to really make that a strong hold. All right, now I can let the elastic go and just spread out my scrunchie evenly. And I'm going to take the side that is not hemmed and I'm going to put that inside the side that I did hem. And I try to line up the two seams. It just looks a little bit nicer that way. And just kind of tuck it in, evenly spread it out. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to sew right back over that same line. Now my scrunchie's finished, so I'm just going to trim off the extra threads, and that's done. Just the regular scrunchie. You could leave it just like that, or you can move on to the next step, which is to create a little bow tie to add on to it. So you're going to take your smaller piece, the 9x4 inch, and fold it in half. Then we're going to start sewing it on one end, starting on the folded end at a diagonal. To make a point on the end. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. I started at a diagonal and then came up across the open end about halfway down, and then I stopped. We're going to do the same thing on the other side and leave a little hole in the middle to flip it inside out. All right, so you can see I did on the opposite side, just tapered down to the bottom, and then I left a little opening in the middle. I'm just going to trim off this extra fabric on the corners. And then from that hole in the middle, I'm going to flip it inside out. And this one's a little easier. You can use your fingers, or you can get a pencil or my long stick here for my paintbrush and just push it through on both ends. This is going to be the ends of the bow ties. And you can see it'll come to a nice point. That's why we tapered it when we were sewing it at a diagonal, so it looks like the ends of a little bow. All right, once I'm finished, I'm just going to flatten it out, and I'm going to find where that little hole was and just kind of tuck it under. And I'm just going to put a few stitches in, even though you're not really going to see this because it'll be tied in, just to kind of hold it together. Now I'm just going to trim off the extra little pieces of thread, and I'll be ready to tie it onto my scrunchie. So when I tie it on my scrunchie, I'm going to find the seam. Sometimes I just kind of bend it in half a little bit, and that's where I'm going to tie this. It'll cover up that seam. And I'm just going to make a nice tight knot, make sure it's centered so that both of the ties are hanging off about evenly. And just put it right over the seam and then tighten it.